And happy Volunteers Week. Today is a really special day for us. It's the first time we've run a volunteers celebration like this, and I think although the pandemic has brought many challenges for us, it's also brought many great opportunities, and today is a really good example of that. We should have been hosting our annual volunteer management conference next week, but of course that wasn't going to be possible when the pandemic hit, and at the time we as you know, postponed the event, and we had no plans to do anything in its stead. However, when Volunteers Week was repositioned and relaunched, it seemed like a really great opportunity for us to not only celebrate volunteer managers and the amazing work that you do, but also to use it as an opportunity to celebrate the amazing things that volunteers do for our organisation. And that was really the genesis of today's event. And it really feels to me and to the other members of the steering group that this is something that we probably should have been doing for years, and is just one of those great things that have come out of, you know, what is a really difficult time for many of us. So I'd like to start today by saying, firstly, thank you for giving up your Saturday morning for coming along today. We've got a really great agenda. I'm really pleased to be able to welcome Charlotte Witteridge to today's event. Charlotte is Head of Volunteering at Sense, and we'll be talking today about leadership in volunteering. We'll also be taking the opportunity to do what we've called Vox Pops, which is where several of you guys are going to be talking about the amazing things that volunteers do in your organisations. And then we're going to close today out by celebrating our Volunteer Leader of the Year award, which again was something that we thought we were going to have to postpone. So it's wonderful that we're able to present that today. Before we get started and I pass you on to Charlotte, I want you to take yourself off mute, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and I want to do a big Happy Volunteers Week to all the amazing volunteers in our sector. So no idea if this is going to work. So take yourself off mute, hit spacebar. Okay, raise a glass. 1, 2, 3. Happy Volunteers Week, everyone.
Happy Volunteers Week, everyone.
Finished mine already.
Brilliant. So, as I say, I'm now going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand you over to Charlotte, who's Head of Volunteering at Sense, and who's going to talk about leadership in volunteering. Charlotte, over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Right, I'm going to try and share my screen now, so hopefully this will work for everybody. Okay. So morning everybody, and thank you so much for the invite to your conference today. Happy Volunteers Week. This week always comes up on me really quickly every year, but it's such a fantastic week to enable us to be able to celebrate our volunteers. And like I said, I'm really excited to be here today. Volunteers Week not only is a great opportunity for us to thank and recognise volunteering, but it's a really special week for me personally as well, because a number of years ago, I started my very first formal volunteer management job on the 1st of June. And it's been a really significant date within my career ever since. And a couple of years ago, I also secured my first head of volunteering role, also starting on the 1st of June. So, like I said, it's a week that is very special anyway because of our volunteers, but also to me personally in terms of my career. Just to give you a little bit of introduction and background to me. So my first experience of volunteering was through my nanny, and she was one of these incredibly committed British Red Cross shop volunteers. She volunteered for years in her local shop, and I saw firsthand through her the incredible experience that volunteering had on her life, from giving her life a meaning and a purpose through retirement, through the great friends and connections that she made through her volunteering. My first personal experience of volunteering was I spent every weekend, pretty much of the winter months, supporting my parents to run their ice hockey team in Solihull. At the time, I never thought of myself as being a volunteer, but again, that's a really great example of the informal volunteering that keeps our sporting world going. And then more formally, I've spent probably the last 10 to 12 years in more formal volunteer management roles. So I started off working for West Midlands Police alongside special constables, and then moved where I've spent the largest part of my career, which has been within the hospice sector. And then just over a year ago, I joined a charity called Sense. And that's where I want to start, really. So Sense is a national disability charity who supports people who are deaf-blind and those with complex disabilities to communicate and to experience the world. I'm going to start by playing you a short video just so that you get the chance to experience what Sense is about. Me quite emotional when I watch that video back. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, but when I was watching it again yesterday to prepare for today, what struck me more than anything was how everything we do at Sense is based on touch. That's how one of the main methods that we communicate with the people that we support, and I'm sure that you noticed that today as well whilst watching the video. So what that has meant that in response to this pandemic, we've had to really quickly adapt our ways of working and consider how we involve volunteers. So pre-COVID-19, all of our volunteer roles were face-to-face, whether that was volunteering in one of our charity shops, being a volunteer on a Sense holiday, going ice skating with a buddy, or cheering at a London marathon. Everything that we did was face-to-face. So in recent weeks, we have begun to adapt and to consider how volunteers can continue to support and add incredible value to our organisation and the people we support at Sense. At this point in time, our volunteering looks different to ever before. So some of our volunteers are carrying out their volunteer roles virtually, whilst others are having to take a break from their volunteering as they are required to shield, or their current roles aren't available because our shops or our centres are closed. So in recent months, my focus has been around engaging our current volunteers, ensuring that they feel valued, of which Volunteers Week has been huge. Considering how we can support our volunteers to return to their roles when government guidelines change and our volunteers feel ready to return. So the situation that we find ourselves in now has presented me both with opportunities and challenges around how I lead volunteering activity across Sense. So we've had challenges around data and the impact that this had on us being able to effectively communicate with our volunteers. We have limited volunteer roles available to enable volunteers to be able to support our organisation during this time, as everything has been done face-to-face. Departments across Sense who involve volunteers work very much in silos, and this has been really challenging to ensure a consistent and a good volunteer experience. And finally, there is that huge uncertainty about the health and well-being of our volunteers, and whether or not they decide to return to their roles with us in the future. I'm sure these challenges aren't unique to Sense, and these are things that you will all be experiencing yourselves. But that said, there are also a number of opportunities for volunteering that we're exploring. It's really exciting to think about the new roles and ways in which volunteers can get involved in supporting us differently in the future. Now feels like a really good time for us to be able to review our processes and remove some of those barriers to volunteering, helping to make our volunteering offer far more accessible. We have a huge opportunity to break down some of those silos across our organisation and get everybody working together, helping us to provide a better, more consistent experience for our volunteers. There are definitely some opportunities for something good to come out of this challenging situation, and I'm really excited to explore what volunteering looks like in the new world of the new normal for us at Sense. I just want to say at this point, I think it's really important to recognise that we are all trying to lead volunteering in incredibly challenging times. This pandemic is affecting every area of our lives. And I think it's important to remember that whilst we all have a job to do, we also need to be kind to ourselves during this time as human beings. You know, this is a really exceptional circumstance at the moment. You know, we're all learning to live and work differently, and there is so much change going on in our lives. I know from my personal perspective that over the last couple of months, there's been times where I've been really confident in my ability to lead our volunteering through this phase, and other times where it has just been a real struggle, and that changes on a regular basis. That said though, there are some things that I have found really useful and have helped me to adapt my approach to leadership over the last few months. And those are some of the things that I wanted to share and talk through with you today. So the first one is around strategy, vision and values. I launched our volunteering strategy back in December before all of this happened. There was a huge impetus behind volunteering. We're making some real progress, and then everything came to pretty much a grinding halt. However, in our volunteering strategy, we were really clear about our vision for volunteering, and I share that with you now. So our vision for Sense Volunteering is to have a flexible, diverse volunteering offer, providing a quality volunteer experience that values the skills and talents that people have to offer and matches interests to connect people, creating meaningful relationships that support those with complex disabilities to participate, feel included and connected to the wider community. For me, reviewing this vision now, despite the different world we are living in, it's exactly the same as what it was before this pandemic. And I found having a vision for our volunteering hugely useful in recent weeks, as it has really helped me to unite my colleagues across the organisation and bring people together towards our common goal for volunteering. We also have 5 organisational values across Sense that underpin all of our ways of working. And I have to say that in recent months, I've seen these values demonstrated more than ever before across our organisation. I personally have found these values really useful as guiding principles in the way that I've gone about carrying out my work in recent weeks. So that's something that might be worth you thinking about revisiting within your own organisation. So reprioritising and adapting your plan. So our volunteering strategy is really clear on the work that we need to carry out in relation to our volunteer engagement. The essence of what we need to do for volunteering does remain the same. However, how we are going to do it and the steps we're going to take are very different to what they were back in December. So reviewing and reprioritising these plans and sharing what that new plan looks like with the wider organisation I have found hugely valuable in helping to raise the visibility of volunteering and in building trust amongst my colleagues. And there's something for me about how I connect with my colleagues differently at this time. I'm not sure about you, or I don't know if this is a trait of a volunteer manager, but I love being around people. And building relationships with those around me is hugely important to me. So that's both personally, but also to enable me to influence colleagues so that I can be more effective in my role. I don't have a volunteering team around me, so I largely rely on my colleagues in the office for bouncing ideas off and for peer support. And I found not having those people around in recent months really challenging. I have to be honest, and I'm still finding my way around figuring out what works for me in terms of influencing people working virtually as opposed to face-to-face. I mean, sadly, for now, the days of the chat over the water cooler or popping to have lunch with someone just aren't possible. So I've been trying to find different ways to interact with colleagues during this time and continue to build connections. One of the things I found really helpful has been to organise virtual coffee breaks with colleagues, and that has been hugely supportive to me throughout this time. These haven't necessarily been conversations about work, but they're the more general, how are you conversations that you tend to have with your colleagues around you that I find I'm really missing at the moment. I can't stress this enough, but looking after your own health and well-being at this time really helps to support your resilience as a leader. I'm sure many of you have seen the little picture that I've put up on the screen, but just please remember to take care of yourself because you can't pour from an empty cup. Collaboration. I've always been really clear at Sense that I can't carry out my role the support of others throughout our organisation. So in the last few weeks, I've brought together our volunteering steering group, which is a group of stakeholders across the organisation who work with and involve volunteers. And that has really enabled us to collaborate on all areas of volunteering. I mentioned at the beginning that we are a national charity, and there are often barriers to people meeting up to work together, especially in relation to geography, travel, and cost. So this has now been totally turned on its head, and I have seen some great areas of collaboration in recent months. We have volunteers moving from one part of the organisation to support with another part. This is something that never would have happened before this pandemic. There is work that we are carrying out at the moment that would normally take us months and months to do. It's now being carried out in weeks. Decisions are being made much quicker, and we're becoming much more of an agile organisation. Collaborating more effectively with colleagues has enabled us to be able to respond to this pandemic. I've been thinking really hard about where I focus my time and my energy. There are so many things at the moment that are just out of our control. I've tried really, really hard to focus my time and energy on the things that I can influence and control rather than the things that I can't. Again, coming to this realisation and making a better use of my time has really helped to increase my effectiveness as a leader and also my own personal resilience. So celebration, and I know that is exactly what we are here to do today, and it is in direct correlation with Volunteers Week. But please celebrate your fabulous volunteers and also your incredible colleagues who work alongside those volunteers. Share their stories and celebrate their achievements. Thank them for all that they do for your organisation and let them know why you value them. I know that this week we have all been sharing case studies and stories about our incredible volunteers and what they do. I don't think this should just be confined to Volunteers Week, and this is something that we should really continue to do. This has helped me to raise the profile of volunteering across our organisation and also to inspire my colleagues about the power of of volunteering. So earlier, I mentioned that in response to the coronavirus, we have adapted some of our volunteering activity. So to finish, I just want to share with you what that looks like in practice. So we have a buddying programme whereby individuals are matched with each other based on their skills and interests. Usually all of these activities are carried out face to face, but our volunteers have been incredible in finding new ways to adapt to work with the people that we support. And these matches are continuing to happen virtually. So I'd like to introduce you today to Danyaal and Beth. They have been buddies since November. They have gone out for food together, they've been cycling together, to name but a few activities. They both share a love for roller coasters and theme park rides and went to Winter Wonderland together and had an absolute blast. They had planned a trip together to Thorpe Park, which coronavirus has sadly put on hold. But this is a short video of Danyaal and Beth catching up with each other virtually and planning their future trip to Thorpe Park.
Hi, Frisia and Katie and everyone at Sense. This is Danyaal and Beth. We're just having a Zoom call and we wanted to say hi and hope you're all okay. We're looking forward to doing some group sessions really soon. Danyaal, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi.
And Danyaal said that this week's gone very quick, didn't you, Danyaal?
Yeah.
And we've been talking about how much we're looking forward to going to Thorpe Park, aren't we, Danyaal?
Yeah.
And what's Thorpe Park going to be? Is it going to be awesome?
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. We're super excited to go on the rides. And we hope we can see you all soon. So wave bye, Danyaal. Say bye.
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 So I just wanted to finish on that really. It's an example for me of our incredible volunteers and how they have shown resilience to adapt. They all have so much going on in their own life, but they've really taken the chance to carry on with their volunteering and think about how they can continue to support their Sense buddies. I've been hugely inspired to see this work that has continued, and it's been fabulous to have the opportunity really to share it all with you this morning. So thank you for the invite today, and I'm very happy to take any questions. I'll stop sharing my screen now, Matt.
Thank you for that, Charlotte. That was absolutely amazing. And I'm just looking at the comments on Twitter from people, which you'll be able to do in a minute. And yeah, it was a really kind of inspirational, thought-provoking and touching presentation that I think we can all learn a lot from. So thank you ever so much for that. Will, I think we've got a couple of questions coming in, haven't we? Do you want to take us through those?
Yeah, I think the first question I've got here is from Kay Thompson Barker. I don't know if you wanted to ask a question yourself.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Hi there. Thanks very much for that, Charlotte. That was really, really insightful and some really practical tips, which is so helpful. Thank you. As I was listening to you, I was really just reflecting upon the such significant change upon society right now in terms of, you know, so many people being furloughed, so many people being uncertain about how they might return to work and what that might mean for them. And of course, everybody's in different situations, but it's a time where, you know, impact on mental health can be really detrimental. And so volunteering, as we know, gives people a really practical opportunity to do something meaningful, to make good use of their time and have a sense of self-worth and value. So I suppose I'm wondering what we can do during this period in the short term, and of course it means working with great agility, but what can we do to provide more volunteering opportunities to people in those situations and therefore really give even more back to society through volunteering?
Yeah, I mean, like I said in my presentation, it's been a real challenge for us. So literally all of our volunteering activity was done face-to-face before this. So one of the things that I have spent time doing is speaking to colleagues across the organisation who work and involve volunteers to find out and map out what those opportunities are for doing things more virtually. So again, collaborating with people, having those conversations, understanding how volunteers can be involved differently has been really, really beneficial. It's the kind of thing that sometimes until you ask the question of people, you don't really know what's possible. This kind of interaction via Zoom, like Matt said at the beginning, we all sit here thinking, why on earth have we never done this before? So I think it's just speaking to people about what the possibilities are, and, you know, being a bit brave and just trying things. Like I mentioned, things have really accelerated for us. We're quite a slow organisation in making things happen, but we set up our Virtual Buddies project in a matter of weeks. So it does show you what can be done. I think there's also, it's really worth looking across the wider sector as well. There's some really good ways in which people have adapted volunteering. So looking outside your organisation as well is something that I've found hugely useful in helping us to identify how we can respond now.
Thanks very much, Charlotte. Thank you.
Kay.
And good luck with it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. That was great. We've just got a couple of minutes left before we move on to the next section. And I don't think we've got any questions, but a couple of things popped into my mind there when you were talking. And one was around, you know, organisational barriers to volunteer participation. And I'm sure, you know, as we all think about it, and perhaps the length of time that it takes us to recruit and onboard volunteers, and the barriers that creates. I just wondered what you and Sense are doing as an organisation to address those in a way that kind of removes those barriers and makes it easier for people to get involved.
So this is something that we are starting to work through at the moment. It's a challenge for us because, like I said, all of the parts of our organisation work in silos, and that means that we have very different processes across the organisation, which I joined have been quite difficult to break down. However, now is kind of the perfect opportunity to throw that rule book out the window, to be slightly less risk averse than we have been in the past. We're also working on a volunteer database at the moment, which is providing us with a really good opportunity to look at our processes. It's work, again, that had started before the pandemic, but we've now got some more resource to support with that project, and the work is being hugely accelerated. So having a system to enable us to tie down our process is going to be hugely useful. But again, looking at all of the different areas across Sense and how they recruit volunteers differently, there's a real opportunity for us to standardise that. So that's what we're going to be doing moving forward.
Brilliant, thank you, Charlotte. And we've just had one question, so we'll just take this one from Esther. Esther, I wonder if you wanted to unmute yourself and ask Charlotte your question.
Hi, Charlotte. Thank you very much for your
Hi,
presentation.
Esther.
So my question was, actually, we've gone doing some buddying online as well, and one of the challenges we had was around some of our service users don't have digital access. Have you been able to work through that in any way?
As yet, that isn't something that we have experienced. We have been working with people who are already known to Sense and looking at how we can support them. However, it is something that we are aware may become a barrier to us in the future. And what we've done in response to that really is we've been working with our corporate fundraising colleagues to look at putting in bids for money from trusts or funds around purchasing some digital technology really and some hardware to enable us to look at how we can support people in the future. So it's not something that we have at this point in time, Esther, come up as a barrier with. I'm sure it's something we will experience. But But like I said, one of the things we are looking at is how we can fundraise to be able to provide that equipment for people who may need it.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Charlotte. And I don't think we've got any more questions coming in, so that just leaves me really just to say thank you for, again, a really amazing and inspirational presentation. Now that you've finished answering all our questions, have a quick look through the chat, because there's so many kind words and thoughts directed your way. I wouldn't want you to miss them. So thank you ever so much, and we'll all give you a virtual clap.
Pleasure, thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Happy Volunteers Week, everybody.
Brilliant. Well, now we move on to the part of today's event where we're going to celebrate volunteers. So what I'd like to do is first hand you over to Becky Benson, who's our first speaker. Becky is a volunteer manager at Birmingham Museums Trust. So over to you, Becky.
Thanks, Matt. Hopefully I can keep to my 2 minutes, and thanks so much, Charlotte. That was really insightful and inspiring. So I just wanted to give you a bit of an introduction to some of the ways that volunteers support us at Birmingham Museums Trust. So they support our charity in so many amazing ways, from welcoming visitors with a smile to our 9 museums and historic properties, caring for our buildings through supporting our conservation work, looking after our collection of over 800,000 objects alongside our staff, and helping us to care for our outdoor spaces, helping to make sure that these spaces are welcoming for all. Whether they're supporting us for a couple of hours a year or in a more regular role, they help us to achieve so much, from ensuring the best possible visitor experience to enabling our collections to become more accessible. So before the pandemic, for example, our Works on Paper team were helping to digitise our collection of works on paper, meaning that people from all over the world have been able to access this collection via our digital image resource whilst our doors have been closed. The team challenges too. They challenge us to be better as an organisation, and our community action panel have been meeting for over 20 years to do just that, advising us, questioning us, acting as critical friends. And our young advisory board at Soho House are in their first year, supporting the long-term planning for Soho House's future, but also helping to make sure that that site is reflective of the local community and as what that community would like to see in our venues. The volunteers I work alongside at Birmingham Museums Trust inspire me with their love for our spaces and their dedication to supporting our work. Over the last few months, lots of the team have started to work remotely from home, helping to care for the collection from a distance, researching our sites whilst they can't be there, and engaging with the public too, just this time digitally. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of our team for their passion, for their time, and for the fact that I learned something new from working alongside them every single day. One of our volunteers recently said to me that she loved volunteering at Blakesley Hall because it gave her more than she gave it. And for me, this just sums up the generosity of volunteering, how important our spaces, our collections and our people are to people, but also how important they are for us too, and the time and the dedication that people share with us. So thanks ever so much for my 2 minutes. Hopefully that wasn't too whistle stop, but I'm going to hand over to Tracy Lazarus from Leighton House Museum. Thank you.
Hello, don't know if you can hear me. Hi. Yeah, I'm Tracy, and I've been working for the last 5 years as the tour and volunteer coordinator at Leighton House and Sanborn House, which are 2 Victorian artist houses 10 minutes apart, just off High Street, Kensington in London, owned and managed by the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea Council. I want to say a really big thank you to all of the amazing volunteers we have at both our houses. We literally couldn't function without them. We have about 50 volunteers helping us out, all doing a variety of different but essential tasks. At Leighton House, we have volunteers helping out and supporting school workshops and community group visits during the week, family workshops and sessions on the weekends, and late and lates in the evenings. A few of our volunteers undertake free walking tours in all weathers around the local area, telling visitors about the Holland Park Circle of Artists, and other volunteers help our visitors to understand our collection in object handling sessions. We also have a team of about 10 dedicated gardening volunteers who come in every other Saturday, come rain or shine, to make sure that Leighton House Garden is always looking its best. When Sanborn House is open to the public for open access, we have volunteer room stewards without whom we could not open the house. Over the summer, when the house is closed for conservation, we have volunteers helping with all the different conservation tasks that need doing, which is no small job in a jam-packed Victorian family home when nothing has ever been thrown away. We are very grateful to all of our wonderful volunteers, some of whom have been with us for quite a few years, others having joined us only recently. Their dedication and enthusiasm are really inspiring, and I hope it won't be too long before we're all back at the houses together. I will now pass you on to our next speaker, Nicola. Thank you.
Hi everyone, can you all hear me? Yeah, wonderful. So my name's Nicola Syker. I'm the volunteering coordinator for Leicestershire County Council's Heritage and Library Services. We have over 400 just truly amazing volunteers, and we just feel so incredibly lucky that they chose to gift their time, skills and energy to our heritage and library services. The volunteering activity they get involved in is incredibly diverse. We've got house interpreters who really help bring the 1620s house and gardens to life. We've got archaeology volunteers who document and take really high quality photographs of our collections, making them more accessible to the public. We've got gardening volunteers who, they're all born with green fingers, honestly. The gardens look truly beautiful. I'm always in awe of them. We've got event volunteers who help us put on amazing events, and they, you know, so many more roles. I can't go through every single one, but they are truly a huge integral part of our heritage team. And I think what's really lovely is not only do they bring the passion, the skills and ideas, but they just bring a genuine love for heritage. And it really shines out from them, so that's lovely. I know I've only got 2 minutes, so I can't talk about everyone and every role, but I just wanted to quickly focus on 2 projects that we've been working on. So we recently launched our community creator projects, all of which have a really strong volunteering element, and it's where local people and local groups take the lead on co-creating and co-designing exhibitions and events in local museums with us. A recent example of this is Anna Mangle, a local ladies group of South Asian heritage who created a beautifully and wonderful exhibition at our Charnwood Museum, where it showcased their traditions, heritage and memories. I honestly don't think I've ever seen such an inviting exhibition case. It had so much colour, so much vibrancy to it, and the whole project, the ladies were involved in every single part of it. From choosing the objects, they even provided some of their own personal items to go in the case, to writing the content to go in the case, and to even creating it and putting it up. So it was fantastic. I also just want to really quickly shout out to my Heritage Youth Forum. They would have been celebrating their 1st year anniversary in July. They're a group of 6 young people, and they've been working on a really exciting youth festival project. It'll be the first of its kind in Leicestershire, bringing together young people to explore and share what heritage means to them. It's lovely. It's going to be an event designed by young people for young people, but unfortunately the pandemic meant we had to postpone it. But you know, I can't wait to get back working with them because they have so many fresh and exciting ideas, and they are providing a much needed young person's voice to the heritage sector. I think everyone can agree it's been a really weird few months. My favourite part of my role is working with the volunteers directly. You know, they just bring so much energy and passion. It always just brightens up my day. So I just want to say thank you to all of them, and yeah, really looking forward to being able to work with them again, hopefully in the near future. I am now passing on to Alex Walker, Chair of the British Association of Friends of Museums.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Friends of Museums are as varied as museums are themselves, of course, and British Association of Friends of Museums represents about well over 200 groups from all over the United Kingdom, from the Highlands, all through England, Northern Ireland and Wales. And they represent in total well over 70,000 individuals, and many many friends of museums do, of course, get involved in volunteering. And they do all sorts, from driving trains to knitting mice for a mouse trail in a museum at one point. They do things like gardening, collections care, they help out at workshops, they guide visitors, they fundraise, of course, they help with youth panels, they run cafes and shops, they demonstrate and work machinery, things like showing the weaving looms at Macclesfield Silk Museum, for example, and all sorts, really. And most of them will be absolutely champing at the bit to get back to work when the virus is over. We're currently doing some work to do a survey of our members about the impact that the virus is having on them, and the results of it, the results are only just coming in. It's a bit early to report much, but there are a few concerns. The headline for BAFM generally is that in a normal year, if you can ever remember what that was like, Friends of Museums in BAFM contributed over 250,000 hours of voluntary work per year to museums, and costing that at the value that the National Lottery Heritage Funds puts on it when they're valuing for in-kind work, that's worth over £3 million to the sector. And in addition, they almost double that with the cash donations that they make to museums as well, of course. So the virus, of course, has happened at the time when, for many museums, it's their key time for working, and also for volunteers to be doing work. And among the impact that we're concerned about is that for many volunteers, it's part of their routine. They're used to coming in doing work at a particular time, and that routine will have been disrupted when the museums reopen. Some of our survey respondents have indicated that they're slightly worried that particularly some of the older volunteers may be concerned about safety when they return to work. So obviously, but of course, obviously that is something that the museums themselves will be tackling for visitors in general and for their own staff. But certainly very clear messages will need to go out to volunteers about how they are going to be able to work safely and securely. And but of course, as Charlotte has said, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to re-examine what volunteers are doing. It's an opportunity to refocus, and a crisis can be fantastic at unlocking creativity and the way that museums and their friends work together. The HVG research project last year about the impact of volunteering in the sector highlighted that for many volunteers, the volunteering enriches their life so much and gives that meaning, and it's a two-way relationship. The work that the volunteers does is immensely valuable to the organisation, but of course it's immensely valuable to the volunteers themselves as well. And we look forward to rebuilding those relationships once this horrible time is over. Right, I'll now hand over to Pippa Vidal-Davis from the Nottingham Castle Trust.
Hello everyone, lovely to meet you, even if it's virtually. I started my role as a volunteer manager just 2 months before lockdown at Nottingham Castle. I've got the wonderful privilege in a way that the castle is closed until February next year anyway for a 30 million redevelopment. So in the worst scenario, it hasn't affected me all that much other than the fact that I'm working from home. But that didn't stop me from trying to think creatively of ways to really engage with people, with volunteers, starting with maybe a dozen at the very start. There's now 900 households volunteering across Nottinghamshire, growing this plant called the Nottingham catchfly. It was a plant that its name reflects what it is really. It used to grow in the castle grounds in the 19th century and before that, but it then disappeared. It's all over the country except in Nottinghamshire. So we really wanted to get people growing from home, and 900 packs went all over the county, encouraging people to grow, nurture, and then come next year when we're open to be able to actually plant them on the castle grounds, showing the resilience, the hope, this sense of community whilst being apart, and then this pride and this kind of belonging to Nottingham. And just the joy that I've received in terms of getting updates from people, the seedlings growing, or cats in the photographs, or families getting together remotely to rival to see who grows the biggest catchfly. It's just been really lovely. And even in these difficult times, I think that we have a platform as volunteer leaders to actually allow people to see themselves as being able to change the world in a way, and even little by little that they can create an impact, and it's thanks to them that we can change the world a bit. So I pass with that very positive note over to Matt, and we're doing a great job.
Thank you, Pippa, and to everybody that spoke so wonderfully there. As I said to Charlotte, please just go and have a quick look in the chat and just see all the positive reactions that you've garnered from everybody. It's really powerful and inspiring stuff, and it's it's why I'm sure that so many of us are volunteer managers and leaders of volunteers, because we get to engage with these incredible people every day of our working life, and that's something that's really special and unique, I think, to our sector. And talking about volunteer leaders and volunteer managers, this is now the perfect opportunity to segue over to Tamsin for the presentation of our Volunteer Leader of the Year award. Tamsin, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody, for inspiring my Saturday morning. I need to do more volunteering, evidently. My name is Tamsin Russell. I work at the Museums Association, and it's been my delight for the last 3 years to be supporting the Volunteer Leader of the Year award for HVG. And we have 2 of our previous leaders in the space virtually. So a big high five to Nicola from 2018, and a big high five to Fiona for 2019. I'm now going to share my slides as well, just before handing over for the sort of pièce de résistance to Judith Patrick from the Churches Conservation Trust, who will announce the winner. But let me just give you some background first. Bear with me. Okay, 1 second. Can you all see a screen in some way, shape or form?
Yes.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Let me just go back. So this year's award has been proudly sponsored by Churches Conservation Trust, and they have donated an opportunity to camp in a church. So we'll hear about that very shortly. And also the Directory of Social Change. The Directory of Social Change has donated 5 books, the Complete Volunteer Management Handbook. So those are our prizes today. In terms of the approach, ensuring that we're supporting those of us that work in volunteering is really important, because the experience our volunteers gain is through how you create that space and that culture. So their gain is your gain, is our gain. So that's the reason why we're really clear we need to be supporting people in their approaches to volunteer management, and very much supporting innovation, collaboration and passion. This year's awards, we got a number of nominations through, and I'm hoping the next slide demonstrates just some of the breadth of the nominations, and it's great to see. I think we've got everybody that was nominated, all of our 8 nominees in the space and on the screen at the moment. Amanda Hanton, who is the Volunteer and Engagement Team Manager for Leicester County Council, and Richard Goff, we've heard from today, our Vice Chair, were the 2 primary members of the panel that were looking at the nominations. So thank you very much for your time and effort as going through. I just wanted to give a little bit of, bear with me. Oh, I've pressed something and I don't know how to get rid of it. So can you see something that says captions and subtitles?
Yes.
Yeah. Damn. I don't even know how to get rid of that. 1 second. Let me just, is there a little time? Oh,
little cross in
by
the
magic. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. I've done it. Yeah. It's wonderful. But also now I've got subtitles. Anyway, I'm going to carry on. So congratulations to Alison Constantine, who went from 0 to 200 volunteers with policies and procedures. Thank you to Danyaal Greenwood, who has created the South Downs Youth Action Group based on the excitement and inspiration of the youth ambassadors from the South Downs Park. Thank you to Esther from the Pankhurst Trust that realised the ambitions from her appointment in 2018 around volunteering and change and activism. Thank you to Fiona Burton, who now in a new role as Public Engagements Manager is looking at aligning learning and volunteers more closely. Thank you to Caris Morris-Brown, who spearheaded ways for those with BAME backgrounds to find new careers in heritage. Thank you to Marina, who spearheaded volunteerings with University of Greenwich and MenCap and Scouts, all organisations and groups that previously hadn't been engaged. Thank you to Rachel, who has absolute passion and pleasure for inclusion and inclusive practice, which for those of you that aren't familiar with the Multaka Oxford project, please look it up because it is phenomenal. Thank you hugely to Terry Lawrence from David Livingstone's Trust, who has organised special project days and invited National Trust for Scotland volunteers to join in, expanding the reach. Such amazing, amazing work. 1 second. And the finalists are Danyaal Greenwood, Fiona Burton, Caris Morris-Brown, Marina, Rachel, and I'm now going to hand over to Judith Patrick from the Churches Conservation Trust, who has worked for over 20 years supporting the charity and volunteer sector. So I'm now going to pass over to Judith.
Morning everyone, hope you can all hear me. What a great way to spend a Saturday morning. I had my doubts about this morning, but it's been so inspiring to hear those great little vox pops, and I'll also be taking a lot away from Charlotte's presentation, which was really, really inspiring, particularly in looking at strategic direction in leadership in volunteering. Happy Volunteers Week to everybody. I'm delighted to be presenting this award this morning on behalf of Churches Conservation Trust. As Tamsin said, the winner will get an opportunity to champ in one of our churches. We've a number of churches across the country who offer this experience, and it's quite a unique offer to spend a night in a historic Grade 1 or Grade 2 star church, a bit like glamping, but in fantastic heritage buildings. The winner of this award is a true inspiration and fantastic advocate for volunteer leadership. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes reading to you from the nomination we received for this person. And it'll be quite apparent as I start reading it who the winner is. I'm just going to read a few extracts because it was quite a long descriptor for this person. So we were told that they are a true leader in volunteer management who will inspire, support and empower people by creating ways for engagement. And that has been this person's passion from the start. She would describe herself as a people person, not a museum person. She was tasked with starting a volunteers, sorry, lost my screen briefly, programme for York Museums Trust, which inherited a paternalistic view of volunteering from the local council, something probably a lot of us have experienced in our careers in volunteer leadership. She quickly realised that what was currently on offer would not attract enough people. From the beginning, Fiona pioneered working with real collections to attract volunteers, seeking out best practice in the sector she found that very few organisations had been investing in this side of engagement, and she would have to create a methodology herself. Managing the programme and supporting volunteers, she was able to reflect on what was working, how to change the programme to make it work better for those individuals. This innovative way propelled the numbers of people volunteering for the Trust from 30 to 200 in just a few years. Fiona realised that numbers reached the upper limit for one person to effectively support, and expanding the volunteer team was key. Expanding the team allowed her to concentrate on collaborating with other organisations to create change in the sector. Fiona and the other volunteer managers came together to support smaller museums and galleries across the region through establishing a network. The network created a safe space to share knowledge and frustrations, alongside providing peer-to-peer training and collaborations. There is a clear drive in Fiona's leadership, supporting others and creating a better volunteering experience. Recently, Fiona has been part of the cultural strategy in the city that is pioneering ways in which collaboration can promote civic engagement through participation and reduction of barriers. At YMT, she has created long-standing partnerships with local charities and organisations in order to create opportunities for everyone who would like to engage with history and art. Fiona has recently taken up a new role at York Museums Trust as Public Engagement Manager, where she has already increased the collaboration between teams through aligning volunteers and learning. Her passion for people not only supports volunteers, but empowers her team to create the best opportunities for people. Fiona is a true leader. She is able to unite people, support the individual, and empower everyone to bring about change. The recognition that this award will give Fiona is long deserved, and to be acknowledged by her peers will be very moving. So I think you've probably all guessed that Fiona Burton of the York Museums Trust is the well-deserved winner of the Volunteer Leader of the Year. Fiona, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I think I've just unmuted myself, and I think I'm starting video. Wow, well, yes, I'll be very quick. Following all these really eloquent speakers from today is no mean feat. I didn't even find out about the nomination until yesterday. I think it's come from one of my colleagues, one of my coordinators, who in previous years has been explicitly banned from nominating me, and obviously working from home for a few months has emboldened him to just do it himself. It's very moving, it's very touching, but I have to say that we are where we are at York Museums Trust from a team effort. So it's really not just about me, it's my whole team, and not to mention the volunteers who now number getting up to 5,000 that we've worked with over the last 14 years. So I'm really grateful, I'm really humbled, but this award is for my team, and that includes the volunteers as well. What I would say is these are really difficult times, and we are all facing challenges and will do going forward, but if any group of people can face those challenges, it is this group. Volunteer leaders, volunteer supporters, everyone who is on this meeting today, the passion and resourcefulness that you all show on a daily basis is the thing that will get us through this. So thank you very much, everyone.
Massive well done, Fiona. Really enjoy your champing experience. And if you want any recommendations, just drop me an email. I'll give you a few pointers on which one to go for.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you, Fiona. And I'm now passing over to Matt to close the session. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you. And I just want to say a massive congratulations to Fiona. I've known Fiona since I started in volunteering 12 years ago now, and I can honestly say it's a hugely well-deserved award. I had no idea until yesterday that you'd even been nominated, Fiona. So just to say again from me, well done. It's absolutely massively deserved. So that really brings a close to today. I think it's been an absolutely wonderful event. It's been really inspiring, and it'll really kind of brighten up the rest of my day, which really needs brightening up, because I think it's absolutely chucking it down here in Leeds. So today was much needed. But before we finish, I just want to say a few thanks. I want to thank all of our speakers who have done such a wonderful job today and really made it what it is. I'd also like to say a big thanks to our supporters, Churches Conservation Trust and the Directory of Social Change for sponsoring our Volunteer Leader of the Year award. And then personally, I'd like to just say a massive thanks to all the members of the steering group who have made today possible in about 4 weeks. Usually when we're planning our conference, we give ourselves about sort of 6 to 8 months to plan things like this. This time we thought 4 weeks would be enough. So I know a lot of you have put a lot of work into making today happen. So thank you very much. If you've enjoyed today, do think about coming along to one of our coffee afternoons, which we run on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. They're usually about kind of 45-minute sessions and feature masterclasses, Q&A, and open discussions, and are really kind of well worth coming along to. We're going to be sharing today's video, so we'll be putting that up on the website over the next few days at some point, and then we'll also be sharing it in Staying Connected, our monthly newsletter that we put out. So just finally from me, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for coming along today, but also for being such amazing and inspirational leaders of volunteers. Thank you for everything you do, and have a wonderful Saturday. We are going to leave the meeting open until 12 if you want to stay, unmute yourself, have a drink and have a chat with colleagues. I know, speaking for myself, I'm going to go and top up my glass because it is now empty, and as Charlotte said, you can't pour from an empty cup, so I'm going to go and fill it up. So thank you everyone, and have a wonderful Saturday. Bye.
Bye. Well done.
Well done everybody, thank you.